So welcome to today's webinar on pain and failure, friend or foe. And today we're going to be looking at a very interesting topic, and I hope you all will find it useful. So just to quickly say, my name is Ezra Israel, and I am the founder and owner of Edifying Answers Training Consultancy, which is a training bespoke consultancy which supports people on a whole range of different topics. And our key is about unlocking insight and enabling people to become more aware of key areas in their life that will help to transform their personal development and anything that they plan to do in the future. So we have a whole range of different empowerment workshops that we do. These are just a selection of some of them. And today we're going to be focusing on this issue of pain and failure, friend or foe. So just in terms of the etiquette for today's webinar, we will be using the chat box facility. And basically you can use it in two ways, either for positive statements that you want to highlight or say in result to things that's discussed during this webinar, or you can use it to write down any questions that you have regarding things that have been talked about, discussed and explored. At the end, also, there'll be an opportunity to ask any additional questions if you do have any. For those who, I'm sure probably everyone by now in terms of the lockdown is probably used to using Zoom, but for anyone who isn't, there is how you access the chat box facility is where you see the three dots when you click on your screen. If you click on that, it gives you another additional option, which has the chat box facility. And when you click on that, then you can type in and make your comment or ask your question. There's also a reactions button. So if there is something that kind of really resonates with you, then you can give it a thumbs up or a clap to let me know that that's something that, yep, you really agree with. So what we're going to cover today is, first of all, it's about awareness. So we're going to look at what is pain, the role of pain and how it helps us to interpret things. We're going to also be looking at the role of hormones and how they enable us to navigate through life. We're going to look at the price tag that comes with greatness and reflect on what, we are willing to pay for that, because it doesn't come freely. We're going to also look at the building process that life takes us through and what muscles need to be developed in that process. And I'm not just talking about physical muscles. We're also going to be learning from those who have walked before us and shared their wisdom on failure and success. And then we're going to have, some case studies that we're going to look at where we will inspect with detail what are the key ingredients that are often overlooked concerning success. So we've got an interesting session. So the first thing we've got to look at is, what is pain? So when we think about this and we're talking about it and we look at it, we say, well, what is it? Well, it's widely accepted definition of pain by the International Association for the Study of Pain. And they said that pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience. Very important that we understand the emotional side, that is associated with actual or potential tissue damage or described in such terms. Okay, so there is a physical, there's a sensory side, but there's also emotional experience when we're thinking about pain. And then in terms of body pain, it can range from mild, localized discomfort to agony. So depending on, if someone breaks a nail compared to someone breaking their leg, it will be mild to agony. Okay, so the reason why it's important for us to understand that it's just as much emotional as it is physical is because it's the same part of the brain that processes physical pain that processes emotional pain, and that is the anterior cingulate cortex. And this is really important that we do understand this, because this is why sometimes people can remain stagnant or procrastinate or, withdraw away from certain situations that may not hurt them physically, but it causes a lot of emotional pain. That's why people do not want to deal with their emotions. That's why people repress their emotions. It's because of the emotional pain that is regulated exactly the same way as physical pain is. And this is why that nursery rhyme, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is one of the most ridiculous songs when we actually put it to the test. So, one of the things that's really interesting it's what is called an emotional pain chart. And what this is a chart that actually shows us how our mental thought patterns can form our experiences. And so what that basically means is that there are certain areas, certain pain areas that have probable causes that are connected to the emotional pain and the feelings and the emotions what we are experiencing. And so, for example, when we look at the neck, sometimes when we're experiencing these pains in our neck, it's actually a result of refusing to see the other sides of a question or a situation or a circumstance. And it's linked to stubbornness and inflexibility. And so, what we have to recognize and realize is that there is a strong connection to our thoughts, our emotions, and our bodily experiences. Then we have like the shoulders, which represents our ability to carry experiences in our life joyously. But we make life a burden by our attitude. So, one of the things, and it's a statement that's often said, he or she is carrying the world on their shoulders. And that is because of the attitude that sometimes we can operate out of. That makes it feel like everything is coming upon us and we're carrying everything in our shoulders. And that can then manifest in terms of our shoulders being tight and rigid and stiff. Then we have the spine, which is the support of life. And so, in terms of the upper part of the spine, when there is a lack of emotional support or feeling unloved, that is where sometimes it can hit us and we can feel the radiation and the vibration of those thoughts and and emotions radiating in our physical body. The middle part of the spine can often be linked to guilt and being stuck in the past. And that's why people would say things like, get off my back. Why do you think people will be saying that? Because that's where they're actually experiencing the feelings and emotions that are going on for them. Then we have the lower part of the spine, which can often be linked to having fear around money or lack of financial support. And then we have the hips. The hips is where there is like a fear of going forward in a major decision, or there's nothing to move forward to. And often, when you look at what the experts say, that trauma is often contained in the hips, and that people actually become rigid in their movement because of the amount of trauma, because of the amount of fear of going forward, and that they feel that they cannot move forward in life, and it starts to manifest in the body. Because whatever emotions we do not allow to go out, it then comes in and will manifest in our body. And the knees is a really interesting one, because the knees can often be a reflection of stubbornness, pride, and ego when we're getting those pains in our knees. And it's because of the inability to bend, to be, we're inflexible, or we won't give in, even though we know someone else is right, or there is another way that we should be doing something. And the knees by default is something to lower us. You're at your highest point when you're standing straight. Anytime you bend your knee, psychologically and literally physically, you are humbling yourself, you are lowering yourself. And so when people have the inability to do that in their life, in their situations, in their circumstances, it can actually manifest in their physical needs and having aches and pains there. Now, I'm not saying for any of these that every single time you have an ache or pain in that part of your body is because of this. But it's important to reflect and recognize that if you haven't had an injury in those areas, but those parts of your body keep manifesting pain, maybe it's important to reflect on what is going on internally that may be radiating those experiences for you. And so when we think about physical pain, I think often we look at this in a completely different way from emotional pain. So the human body it's a beautiful, it's a wonderful thing. It regulates itself, it maintains itself fairly well, and it has a sophisticated system to warn us of malfunctions. Okay? That's why we experience pain. Pain lets us know that something is wrong. And when wear and tear occurs, we will use maintenance to help us to get better. So we might rest, we might take certain types of medication, or we might go to the doctor if it's a real serious issue. The difference, though, is emotional pain. And our emotional health, though, it gets far less attention. So a cut unattended will become infected, and we know that. So we won't allow it to get that way. We will bandage it. We will put, we will clear up a wound. We'll go to the doctor if it's something that's really bad. But when we think about the emotional side, heartbreak, disappointment, we allow these things to go on and we pretend everything is okay. When something happens, we go, no, it's all right. Don't bother me. When in actual fact, it does. And when that emotional injury worsens and spreads to other areas of our life, it's only when we can't take no more that we tend to do something about it. But it's important that we understand that the emotional pain is regulated the same way as the physical pain. And this is proven by scientific fact. So this is an article from the New England Journal for Medicine. And they basically say that a broken heart is just as painful as a broken foot. And this study examined 19 different individuals who suffered cardiac arrest as a result of emotional stress. And that grief or that fear experience created such a pain within them that it triggered a heart attack. And so it's really important that we are aware of how pain influences us on an emotional and on a physical level. Now, pain also helps us to interpret things in life, in experiences, in situations and circumstances. So we know that children are very inquisitive, right? I've got 2 children myself, so I've learned this the hard way. And when you often tell them to not do something, they think, well, why shouldn't I do that? Let's just give it a go and see. Now, in this scenario that you can see in this picture here, just imagine, the child's opened up the fire thing and the child puts their hand in the fire. Now, imagine if they did not feel pain, because when they feel the pain, they automatically do what? Withdraw their hand, right? And that helps them to interpret, this is not good for me. This feels painful. But imagine if the child didn't experience pain. You keep its hand in there and it will start to say, oh, that's interesting. My hand's gone black. That looks nice. Wow. And so pain serves a purpose to help us interpret things that's for our own benefit, whether it be physical or emotional. When we feel the pain of rejection, when we feel the pain when someone says something that's hurtful, these are all important to help us to interpret, to recognize this is not someone that I maybe want to invest my time in. This is not a situation that's beneficial for me. Because when I go into that place, when I'm meeting those people, I don't feel good about myself. It helps us to interpret things. And this is fundamental from the day that we are born. Just think of a child, just think of a baby. Baby cannot speak when they're first born, okay? But what the baby does know from the day of its conception is that pain is felt, experienced, and then the baby has a reaction as a result of that pain. The reason why we know that a child is hungry is because it has hunger pains and cries. The reason that we know that a child is uncomfortable because it may have pooed in its diapers is because the itching and the moving feels uncomfortable and the baby cries because of the pain. The reason why we may know that something is wrong with the child when they're feeling unwell is because it keeps crying. And we will check the diapers, there's nothing wrong, but then we may touch its head and realize there's a fever and we give it Calpol. So from the very beginning, pain is so essential to how we communicate with each other. Very important. But pain also helps you to know how much you are willing to fight for something. You see, Mike Tyson said something once. He said, everyone, wants to be a champion till they get punched in the face. And it's so true in every area of our lives. We really know how much we want something when the pain hits us and we choose to continue. And one of the greatest examples of that is when giving birth. I've witnessed it twice. And I tell you, the pain that the woman goes through in childbirth to the point of exhaustion, and many women, unfortunately, have died in the process, but they will continue to push through because of how important it is for them to bring forth that child. The same can be said for someone who is trying to lose a whole load of weight. In the beginning, it is painful. They hate it. But because of how much they want it, they push through the pain. And so pain helps you to know and identify how much we want stuff. And there are certain things for all of us in our life that we're not willing to go through the pain for. And so we know we're not necessarily really committed in that area. And then there's some things, it doesn't matter what it takes, we will push through the pain. And so it's also there as a reality check to help us how much we're willing to fight for things. And it's important that we all recognize and understand about the pleasure and pain balance, or sometimes imbalance in our lives, because people are motivated towards pleasure and away from pain, the majority of people. And those people that are able to reach a place of excellence in whatever area that is, or to become the gold medalist, or to become a successful entrepreneur, or become a successful mother or father, or become a successful leader or a great friend, they are the ones who are able to recognize and recalibrate so that they're not so focused on pleasure, but they're also able to manage and deal with the pain. Because pleasure is about your purpose, okay? Your purpose is about what it is you like doing, what it is you feel interested in, what it is that makes you feel good. That's where the pleasure side of it is. But the pain is about your passion, because your passion makes you push past the pain. The more of a passion that thing is for you, is the more you're able to ride the waves of uncertainty, of fear, of doubt, and of worry. And if we only are focused on the pleasure, there is many things that we will not be able to fulfill in our lives. And so we do need to have a balance, because not everything that brings you pleasure is good for you. And not everything that causes you pain is bad for you. So we have all these different hormones that are there to assist us in the journey of life. And so we have oxytocin. Oxytocin is known as the happy hormone or the hug hormone or the love hormone. And this is paramount for human connection. This is why we are creatures of social creatures and like to engage and be around other people. Because every time when we have a connection with someone, when you form a good relationship with someone, when you have a best friend or intimate partner, oxytocin is continuously released, which helps you to feel better when you're around that individual. It's also the key ingredient that enables a mother to produce milk when she sees her child. It is oxytocin that creates that chemical reaction. And so oxytocin plays a major role in helping us to deal with pain. That's why when someone hugs you, you feel good because it releases oxytocin. And so this is something that, we can use in our lives to help us. That's why it's much better to have people around, to be connected to people, to have a support network, because it gives you the strength to be able to carry on. Then we have serotonin. Serotonin is a massive hormone that has a great importance in our day-to-day lives. Serotonin regulates many things, but three in particular: mood, temperature, and sleep. And so when we have high serotonin levels and when serotonin is flowing in our bodies, it helps us to regulate our mood. It helps with our temperature and it helps with our sleep, which is paramount for us to be able to endure situations that's going to come around the next day. So these hormones are really key and they're really important in helping us to navigate through life, to be able to manage and deal with pains, with failures. Then we have dopamine. Dopamine is known as the happy hormone. It regulates pleasure. And so when we do something that we enjoy, we get a dopamine release. It comes to the front of the brain, it rewards us, it flushes through the brain, and it reinforces us to do it again. So it's known as the reward and reinforcement hormone. And this is paramount for human survival. If we did not like food, drink, and, and sex, the human race would die. And so we are hardwired to do things that we enjoy and that give us a dopamine release. Then we have endorphins. Endorphins are what are known as they help us to feel good, but they help to manage pain. So say, for example, if you're someone who hasn't been doing exercise and you think to yourself, I want to start getting more fit and healthy, and you go for a 10-minute run. And the next day your legs are aching you. But endorphin is released. And then if you continue to do that, because more and more endorphins get released, eventually you don't feel the pain or don't feel it as much anyway when you go for that jog. And it gives you the ability to then push a bit further and say, I'm going to do a 15-minute jog or a 20-minute jog. And endorphins does that in our lives. So whenever we're doing something, whenever we're having physical activity or things are going on, endorphins are released to help you to feel better, to help you to manage and cope with the pain. And it's interesting that if there's research has shown that if you are experiencing pain and you pick up a picture of a loved one, because of serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin, it will actually release some of that pain. So it's really important to understand these hormones that we have and how we can use them. And the last one is adrenaline. Adrenaline is known as the fight or flight response. So whenever we are worried or afraid or excited about something, adrenaline is flooded into our system. And it gives us the ability to run faster or to fight harder. And adrenaline is often released to help us to cope and manage in situations. And so again, we have all of these different hormones that play a role in terms of within our relationship with pain, but to help us to be able to manage it by our, intrinsic design. These hormones are there to help us to manage this relationship with pain. So what I want us to focus on is on the emotional side of pain. Because I think with physical pain, we all know it. When it's there, we all manage it. We know how to manage it. We rest, we go to the doctors and stuff. But I want us to look at more so at the emotional side of pain, because I think that's the part where often people are not fully aware of what's going on. And when we're thinking about emotional pain, there are two types of pain that will influence your life. The first one is the pain of discipline. It's the pain of pushing forward. It's the pain of being consistent. It's the pain of doing what is right over what feels easy. And discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. That is the bridge. Successful people do not do one thing once to become successful. Successful people are people who consistently do the right thing, day by day, situation by situation, circumstance by circumstance. It's a habit, and it's the habit of discipline, because everything affects everything. When you are disciplined in one area, it will help you to be disciplined in another area. The second side, or the second type, is the pain of staying the same. The pain of being stuck. The pain of holding on to things. The pain of living in the past. And there are many people, unfortunately, who have lived in this state of pain for 2, 3, 10, 20 years. And a perfect example of how this can be is, say, for example, if someone's had a major injury to their leg and they haven't been able to walk, and they've had to go through a lot of therapy, physical therapy, to kind of get themselves back to that point. But for that individual, they have to make a choice. You see, there is the pain of discipline, of fighting through that pain so they can get back to a place where they can walk again, and then they've overcome it. Their pain, they got a reward for it. And then there's other people who refuse to go through that pain. And so they stay stuck in the pain of never being able to walk again properly. The pain of their leg never fully healing. The emotional pain of always remembering what it used to be like before they could walk. And in our lives, we can look at different situations and circumstances and ask ourselves, are we operating out of the pain of discipline to push through, to have that courageous conversation, to address that situation, to speak to that person who may have done something that's really impacted on us, to be able to go back to our past and say, enough is enough with this? Or are we staying stuck in that same pain, holding on to that thing that someone said to us 20 years ago, holding on to that failure that we had and never trying again, giving up on that business idea because it didn't work the first time, never trusting again because one relationship went wrong? And we have to learn to walk again in whatever that situation is in your life, so we are not stuck, but we operate out of the pain of discipline, because you always get a reward for your discipline. And I'm not saying it's easy by any chance. Growth is painful. Change is painful, very painful. But nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere where you don't belong. And there is too many people living the life that doesn't serve them. And they're literally being trapped in a glass jar because they're emotionally stuck in the past. And so there has to be a sacrifice. There is a price tag for greatness. There is a price tag for being able to reach the success that you desire. It's not all just about pleasure. There is pain that comes with this. And sometimes that painful situation is good for us. It's not always a bad thing. And there is a price tag. There's a price tag for greatness, and it is hard work and pain. And I don't know anyone, whether personally in my life, when I've looked at various different people who have been successful in the public eye, who ever got to that position of greatness easily, without hard work and without any pain. I've never heard any testimony where someone just said, yeah, tried it once, it was perfect, it worked, then I got rich of this, or then I became number one. Never happens. There is never a 50% off for greatness. You will never see it on sale. Every champion was once a contender that refused to give up. And every single one of us in this webinar, you can be a champion in whatever area of your life you want it to be. But you have to refuse to give up. You have to push through the pain to get your reward. So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to let go of? What are you willing to do differently from today? What are you willing to say no to this day going forward and say yes to where you was normally saying no and retreating away from the pain? Because we all have to bury something. You cannot get to where you want to be doing the things that you're doing now. You have to change. If we keep doing the same thing and expecting something different, it's called the definition of insanity. And every successful person has had to sacrifice something. They've had to bury something. They've had to let go of something. And that may be sleep. Sometimes it might be the love of sleep means you're missing opportunities to get things done. It might be unhealthy food. That food is not fueling your body. That food is not helping you. And maybe too much of that unhealthy food, maybe you need to cut back on that. It could be partying, it could be alcohol, it could be toxic people. Are there certain people that just drain your energy? Energy vampires, they suck you dry. Is it poverty mindsets? How do you think about yourself? Self-love is when you have the ability to think about yourself, talk about yourself, and treat yourself in ways that serve you. What is your mindset towards things? Do you look at things thinking that you won't be able to do this? Because whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. What are you willing to sacrifice today? And we have to understand the truth of the matter is we all go through pain, whether rich or poor, whether young or old, whether male or female, we all go through pain. It's something that we all experience. The difference is some of us choose to stay stuck in that place. And if there is no pain, there is no gain. You don't get stronger mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually by staying the same. Any course that you would learn and passed, it was a struggle, wasn't it? You didn't go through the first lesson and think, oh my God, this is so easy. You was like, how am I going to get through this? But you got through it. If it was around getting fit and healthy, the first time you did that training, you felt like you was going to die the next day. But as you continued with it, it's become easy. It's got easier. And in whatever area it is in our life, we have to recognize we have to go through pain. And if we didn't, we would stay the same. If you didn't go through pain, you wouldn't be able to speak now. You wouldn't be able to read now. You wouldn't be able to walk now. Because all of us, when we were babies and we were trying to learn to walk, we would drop down, we would fall down because our legs were weak. They were trying to learn and get balance. That was painful for us. Our parents were like, come on, you could do it. But for us, it was painful. It was a struggle. So we always go through pain. It's just some of the pains we accept and some of them we run from. And so it's important for us to recognize that sometimes holding on to emotional and mental pain does more damage to our mind and our body than letting go. Even though letting go is painful, it is also liberating. And so sometimes it hurts to let go of the offense, to let go of the things that people did to us in the past, to let go of situations and circumstances, to let go of how things used to be. But it hurts more to hold on to those negative thoughts and feelings, guilt and shame, to hold on to your past that was meant to be a lesson and not a prison sentence, to hold on to the mistakes that you are meant to learn from, to hold on to jobs that you don't feel serve you anymore and are actually causing you hurt and pain, but you're still staying there because of the fear of moving on, fear of uncertainty, and to hold on to unhealthy relationships that are damaging you. So we have to learn to let go, even though it may be painful. And I love this quote: change is painful. Few people have the courage to seek out change. Are you seeking out change today? Am I seeking out change today? Most people won't change until the pain of where they are exceeds the pain of change. Why put ourselves through so much turmoil to do the thing that we actually could have done a lot earlier? Don't wait until the pain is so painful that that triggers you to make that change. Whatever it is you need to do, wherever it is you need to step up your A game, wherever it is you need to have that conversation, wherever it is you need to let go of that relationship, wherever it is you need to start standing up for yourself, wherever it is you need to start doing differently, wherever it is you need to have a bit more dedication and train yourself up so that you can move on and do something differently, make that choice today. Don't wait until the pain gets so bad that you're compelled to make the change. And so it's all about building muscle. And for a lot of people, when they talking about physical development of their body, okay, how do they build their muscle when they want to increase in mass and size? Well, what they do is what we know as muscle hypertrophy. And this is where the increase of growth of the muscle cells through exercise occurs when the fibers of the muscles sustain damage or injury. Very important. The body repairs those damaged fibers by fusing them, which increases the mass and the size of the muscles. In other words, in order to build muscle, this is for any of us, in order to build muscle, you must be willing to go through the process of pain. To get from that first guy who can't open the jar to get into this ripped second guy, had to go through the process of pain. And it's the same for all of us. We need to develop our emotional, our mental, our physical, and our resilience and our spiritual muscles. And the only way we do that is by going through the pain. That's why I always say to people, don't just go through the struggle, grow through the struggle. People who are resilient because of things that they have gone through. None of us are born with resilience. It's a muscle that we develop by pushing through the pain and growing stronger each time. So I want people to share in the chat. What lessons have you learned through your pain? And what did you recycle it into? What has gone on in your life? What's gone on in the last few months? What has been situations and what have you learned through your pain? Have you recognized things about yourself? Have you identified things you can do differently? What lessons have you learned? Share in the chat. Are people having difficulty accessing the chat? Sorry, do people mute themselves? Yeah, feedback there. So what kind of things have people experienced? What lessons have you learned through pain? Have you learned that you're stronger than you thought? Have you learned that actually you can do it? Yeah, that you have the strength to overcome more than you realize. Absolutely. 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 And it's really key. Often we doubt ourselves, but we're actually much more stronger than we actually think. We can do much more than we equate to ourselves because we can often be our worst critics. We can often look at ourselves in such with limited beliefs when actually we're much more powerful than we think. Absolutely. So I stopped internalizing pain. Yeah, through letting go. Absolutely. Absolutely. And found myself a support system. Yeah. Yeah. With your true self. Absolutely. It's so important. Mm, okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's about adapting. It's about growing. It's about developing. And it's about recognizing, and again, that pain serves a purpose. And it also helps us to recognize how much we want things. And as we push through, that pain can actually serve us in many ways. You know, with experiences that we've experienced, it helps us to be able to relate to others. It helps us to be able to connect to others. It helps us to be able to give to others, especially when we can see the pain that they're going through when we've experienced something similar. Because everyone experiences can go through the same experience but have different reactions. But pain serves many purposes. And so learning is a gift, even when pain is your teacher. It's important to remember that. Even when pain is your teacher. And so the relationship with pain, you know, in order to reach success, we often have to go through the valley of pain. And that can just be the pain of getting it wrong. That can be the pain of being criticized for what you stand for. That could be the risk factor, the fear factor. All of these different things that help us to get into our pathway and journey of success. There's various different things that will come in the way. And we have to understand that relationship with pain. Like the more we try to run away from it, unfortunately, is the more it's going to stare us in the face. But once we face it and deal with it, then we're able to accept, okay, this is going to be this situation. Let's get on. Let's get it on. Let's do this. Let's make it work. Let's recycle the pain. And I love this quote. It isn't the mountains ahead to climb that wear us out. It's the pebble in your shoe of self-doubt. And self-doubt is like kryptonite to Superman in our lives. It wears you out. It sucks away your confidence, your self-esteem. And so we have to really be able to focus and trust and believe in our own ability. We really have to be able to trust it. Yeah, absolutely. Fear of speaking, and putting it on a video. and in a public space. Yes, all of these things that hold us back. Fear, false evidence appearing real. And we have to really be able to overcome these and challenge these and go through the pain to be able to get the prize at the other end. It's really important that we're able to do that. So I want to ask people, what thoughts or feelings come to mind when you think about failure? Write in the chat. Just put a word. What comes to mind when you think about failure? What comes up for you? What's the first thoughts? Shame. Yeah. Starting over again is long. Yeah, absolutely. Humiliation. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And these kind of things can play havoc in our lives because whatever it is you think about when you're thinking about failure, yeah, sadness and shame, is the thing that will come up when you've got to try something new, when you've got to do something different, when you've got to step out of your comfort zone. These are the things that will be playing in the back of our minds. And so it's really important that we understand this and we start to counteract it, that we start to address it and deal with it. Because if we hold on to those thoughts, unfortunately, they will keep us captive from the great things that we are able to accomplish once we start to overcome those thoughts in our mind. And so it's really key because this is a perfect example of how failure can play in our lives, because all of those arrows miss the target. And that's when we get it wrong, when we make a mistake and when we don't achieve that goal the first time. And each one of those has pain attached to it. And that's why we think those thoughts when we think about failure, because there is a pain attached to it. There is a feeling and emotional pain that we experience when we got it wrong, when we missed the mark, when we failed that test, when we didn't get that interview. And those things can play havoc in our self-confidence and our self-esteem. And they then influence our decisions next time. And so it's really key that we are aware of these things. And it makes us feel inadequate. Absolutely. It makes us feel inadequate, like we're not good enough, or the imposter syndrome, or that, why try? Because I won't be able to do it. Or we can operate out of a fixed mindset where we say you're either born with these traits or you're not, rather than a growth mindset which says, I don't have it yet, but I'm able to achieve it by hard work, discipline, and dedication. And so we have to really look at this area because the fear of failure runs deep through the veins in people's body. And the fear of failure and the inability to learn from mistakes has been one of the single greatest obstacles of human progress. This is an international virus that affects people worldwide. And what happens is studies have shown that we are often so worried about failure that we create vague goals so that nobody can point the finger if we don't achieve them. Can you imagine that? And we are all guilty of doing this at some point in our life, that we will create such vague goals so that if we get it wrong, we won't feel out of place because no one wouldn't know because it was so vague anyway. So we don't set SMART goals, meaning specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. But it's just these vague goals that if you achieve it or you don't achieve it, you don't even know because it was so vague anyway. We have to be aware of how failure limits us. And that failure is because of the fear. But fear can be turned around to mean to face everything and rise. And we have to get to a place where we're no longer fretting everything and running, but we face everything and rise. And yeah, sometimes we can be aware that they're vague, and sometimes we are not. But because remember, so a man thinketh, so he is. So if you are thinking out of a limited mindset and you can't do much, then you're going to set a vague goal, which to you may seem a great thing, but it's nothing in relation to your true potential. And this is why the mind is the battlefield, because it's how you see yourself. You see, life is not a reflection of what's happened to us, but it's a reflection of how we see ourselves and how we respond to those situations. And so it's really important that we are aware of what's going on in our own psyche, in our own mind. How do you see yourselves? What are your strengths? If someone was to ask you, what's 5 of your strengths? Can you just wheel them off? Can you say what they are? But if someone was to ask you, what's 5 of your weak points? How quick can you say them? These are the kind of things that help us to know where the imbalance is. And so it's really important that we are aware of how these things can impact on our day-to-day life, on the very decisions that we make on a daily basis. And so, you know, when people think about failure, these are the kind of things that may come up. You know, there's stress and sorrow and sadness, feeling mad, feeling frustrated. It's looked at as suffering. But when you fail, it's just your first attempt in learning. Like, why do we think that the first time you try to do something that you should be good at it? Why do we think that? Where did that warped mindset come from? When every single human being on the earth, when they first tried it, they weren't good at it. And that has been through every stage of our life, from walking, talking, riding a bike, reading, every area of our life. Yeah, sometimes you only get one chance. That's true. And what happens is then how you prepare for that and what you do with that trains you for the next one. So you may only get one chance at that interview and you fail it. But why did you fail it? Did you not research enough? Did you not invest enough time? Did you not prep for that presentation and actually do a few dry runs for it? And even though you can't get that job again, you then do differently the next time and you get the second job, which actually works out to be better for you. And you will never know that because you didn't get the first job. But that's how we learn and grow. That's how we learn and grow. And you're going to see as we go through, and I give you some of the case studies, that's how we learn and grow. And one example of that is this. What did Thomas Edison say? I haven't failed. I found 10,000 ways that don't work. Did he give up on the first time? On the 50th time? On the 1,000th time? No. But what happened as a result? And often we give up too quick, not realizing that it's in your failures that you're going to get your success. Because each time you fail, you learn something from it. There's many things that I've done wrong that have helped me get to the place where I am today, where I do things differently. And so failing is not a bad thing, as long as you learn from it, as long as you grow from it, as long as you develop as a result of it. And it's a paradox. Failure is a paradox because failure is an experience that lends itself to wisdom. The majority of the things that you know and I know today, there's more that we've learned from what we've done wrong than what we've done right. It ultimately makes you a better version of yourself. And many people don't realize this and don't know this, but 8 out of 10 millionaires have been financially bankrupt. Why do you think they then know how to manage their money? They learned from the mistakes. We look at people at their chapter 25 in their life when we're at chapter 5 and think we can never be like them. But they learned through mistakes. 8 out of 10 millionaires have been financially bankrupt. They got it wrong. They made major mistakes. But we don't know that. So we just look at them and think that they just made one decision and they got it right. And so Trump with bankruptcy. So it's important. It's important that we recognize the role that failure plays in our lives. We have to recognize that. There's the thing of the 10,000 rule for success. To reach the exception and the highest point in the game of whatever it is you're doing, there's a 10,000 hour rule. Why do you think it's 10,000 hours? Because there's many hours of getting it wrong and learning from it and adapting. So it's really important that we understand the purpose of failure. So let's look at what some of the greats said about this. A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. So you ask any person that's been successful in any area, in any field, in any industry, and they will tell you in abundance how much times they got it wrong. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He has trainers made after him. And he said, I failed over and over again in my life. That's why I succeed. Many people do not know the beginning of MJ. And that in the beginning, no one wanted him to play in their team. He was rubbish. He was terrible. And what he did with each pain, with each failure, he said, I'm going to get on the court before they get on the court, and I'm going to stay on the court after they finish. Look what the end result was. Because he had the pain of discipline, and it served him well. If he had given up, we would never have known Michael Jordan. What are you at right now in your life where you're feeling like giving up, where you failed over and over again? But I'm encouraging you today, keep going on, because those failures are going to be the reason why you succeed in the long haul. What did Martin Luther King say? If you can't fly, meaning if you're not at that place yet, then run. And if you can't run, meaning if you're not at that place yet, then walk. And if you can't walk, meaning if you're not at that place yet, then crawl. And what does that mean when they're talking about crawl? Bend the knee. Remember what we looked at earlier? Humble yourself. If you're not at that place yet, seek out the information you need to know. Learn from other people. Ask and say you don't know. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Don't give up. Get up. Keep going. Trust in your ability. Other people may doubt you, but never doubt yourself. As long as you're moving forward, little by little, a little will make a lot. And this one is the one that sums it up for me. Nelson Mandela. And this is what he said. Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. That is your real success. When you fall down and you can get back up again, that shows how champion you are. That shows how strong you are. That shows how great you are. And so don't let your failures stop you. Don't let your pain of defeat stop you from pushing forward, because that is what's going to make you great. That's what's going to make you succeed. That's what's going to make you resilient. And so failure is one of the greatest teachers. It's what helps you to know what you're really made of. It helps you to see when the going gets tough if you get going. It helps you to realize what you do when things don't go according to plan. And as the saying says, it's much easier to give advice than to run one's own life. You know, when someone else fails, we can give them all the encouragement. You can do this, you're great, come on, man. But what do you do to you? What do you say to you when you fail? Eat of the same medicine that you give out to others. And so balance is so important. It's key. Balance is key. And what do I mean by that? Don't let success get to your head. When you do well, when you accomplish, when you win, when you finish the race, when you get that job, when you get that promotion, when your business is doing well, don't let it get to your head, because that's when complacency sets in. But on the flip side, don't let failure get to your heart. When you make a mistake, you've made a mistake. You are not a failure. There's just something that you need to work on, develop, and find another way of getting around. And so understand that failure is not the opposite of success, but it's a part of success. Your failures make you stronger. Your failures make you understand. Your failures make you be able to relate to others. Your failures make you be able to teach people because of what you learned during your process. And so, when you fail, you try again and again and again and again until you gain, until you gain, until you learn the lesson, until you overcome, until you complete that extra lap, until you can do those extra press ups, until you know the answers in that test, until you can face that individual, until you can have that courageous conversation, until you can let go of that pain, until you can say goodbye to those frenemies, those people who pretend to be your friend but are really your enemies, and you know they're no good to you, and you know you shouldn't be in that relationship, but you're fearful of what may come after. And so, one of the things that I used to look at, and I used to say when like someone lost a match, football, basketball, and I used to think, what's wrong with these people, man? It's just a match. But I realized that failure is painful. And it's painful when it means so much to people. When they've worked with blood, sweat, and tears to make that thing happen, and they lost at the last hurdle. But the key thing for all of us is that when you lose the game, don't lose the lesson. That is the thing that will propel you forward. That is the thing that will change things for you. That is the thing that will make you move forward in a completely different way. Don't lose the lesson. And it's important to recognize how failure drives development. So, can anyone tell me who this is? Write in the chat if you know who this is. If you don't know, just say you don't know. So I know that people don't know. But if you do, tell me who this is. Let's see what people are saying. No idea, don't know. Don't know. Okay, cool. I'm going to give you, oh, we've got some more come through. Let's see. Still ideas, no, don't know. Okay, cool. So I'm going to show you a picture now, and this might help you to know. Anyone know now? This is who it is. James Dyson, the chairman and chief engineer of the company Dyson. Okay? Now, James Dyson is a very successful man. Yeah? He's a very successful man. But many people don't know how he got there. And this is where we're going to look at how failure drives development. So, he started his business at the age of 33 years old. And at that time, he remortgaged his house because he had huge debts. At that time, he couldn't even afford a computer. He didn't have the money. Okay. So he had to handwrite all his results and his tests in a book. In the first year, he conducted hundreds of experiments, hundreds. And he had to write down all of his equations and everything and how it went in a book, meaning he failed hundreds of times. Okay. Now, in all, it took him an astonishing 5,127 prototypes before he believed the technology was ready to go into a vacuum cleaner. Let's just think about that for a moment. He failed 5,127 times. Imagine if he just thought at the point of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000. I've had enough of this. I can't be bothered. But he pressed through. He pressed through several years. By the time he got it to a place where he could actually put it into the vacuum cleaner, it was several years. And this is what I'm talking about. Failure is not always, when we look at people and we say, oh, they're overnight success, they're not. It's just we don't see all the work that they did in the lab over the various years. And that's the thing. There is an iceberg of success. Often we only see the 10% of what happened at the end, but we don't see the failures, the disappointments, the heartaches, the pains, the difficulties, the stress, the struggles. All of the things that people go through. No one don't know about the 5,127 prototypes, but they just say, "Oh man, that guy, look how successful he is. I want to be like him." Are we willing to go through failure though, to get like him? Because no one became successful overnight. We're going to look at this. I want us to understand the formula to success. And the formula to success is being willing to embrace failure and use it as a stepping stone to create your own success. So let's look at Pixar. So Pixar, as we know, created a whole load of great blockbuster movies, from the Toy Story movies to Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles. The list goes on and on. They are phenomenal. They do things in a whole different league. Okay, even though they make their films for children, adults love it just as much. Yeah, they're great. But what makes them that way? So with Pixar films, they have generated on average worldwide about $600 million. In English pounds, it's about 468,933 from films. Okay, they are killing it. They've done extremely well. But why? So what happens is a Pixar lead authors, they come up with their storylines, right? Which they'll present in to wider groups in their large team meetings. There'll be rooms full of people, and then they will decide, they think, okay, that's a good one. We'll go with that, right? That's just the beginning process, right? But they go through the pain pleasure syndrome, because what happens is the storyline is then pulled apart as the animation gets into production. Each frame, each strand of the story, each scene is subject to debate. And they would say, no, we don't want that anymore. Move this, that won't work. They go through this process. Each time, failures are just seen as a process to get them closer to where they want to go. It takes around 12,000 storyboards, drawings, to make one 90-minute feature. Think about that for the individuals who are constantly creating those storyboards. If they saw failure the way that many people see it, they would have given up. We would never have had these blockbusters. And because of the monotonous process, story teams often creates more than 125 storyboards by the time the film is actually completed. So for all of these blockbusters, there was over 125 storyboards that were created. That's why they're successful. They don't do it once and say, let's go with this. They see failure as their friend. It's important. If we look at this, if you look at any journey of anyone who's got to a place where people look at them and say, wow, I want to be like that, this story repeats itself. And this is why failure is not your fault. Failure is your friend. And so this is how we should see when you refuse to let failure bring you down. You see, that is an egg that shouldn't be in that place. And sometimes when we fail, we shouldn't have got there. But it is able to withstand and resist against being crushed. And that's what needs to happen with us. When we have a failure, don't let it crush you. Learn to adapt to get out of your situation and to keep going forwards. And only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. And let me tell you this, no one knows your failures. No one even cares about your failures. All of those broken plates that are going down those stairs, no one don't know about. That's what happened in practice time. That's what happened when that guy was learning to be able to master his craft. But when you stand out on the stage, or when you were doing that talk, or when you were walking in that gift and when you are leading that team and whatever it is you are doing, that's all people see. That's all people see. But are you willing to go through that so that people can see your greatness? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And so the black box theory is very important. And essentially, a black box flight recorder is a heavily protected recording device, which is similar to a hard disk or a memory card. And the black box records all relevant flight data in addition to conversations in the cockpit. And this is the key tool that they use whenever a plane crashes, okay? They get it out from the wreckage and it gives them all of the data and the information so that they can understand exactly what happened so that it doesn't repeat itself again. Okay? It's a way of learning from failure. And my question to you is, are you operating out of the black box theory? When you fail, when something goes wrong, are you reflecting? Are you recognizing what went wrong? What can I do differently? How can I change this for me, for my team, for my family, for my partner, for my health, for my well-being? And are you having awareness? It's me. What is the thing that you need to do differently? Change is always an inside job. Don't point the finger at other people. Just look at what you can do differently and let what you do differently change your situation. Because it's only when we operate out of this type of thinking, mindset, and behavior that it ensures that the procedures can be changed so we don't make the same mistakes again. And that is the difference from people who fell their way forwards to success. They learn from what went wrong, they adapt and go forward. And that's what we all can do. We can all choose to do that. Or we can choose to let the pain keep us stuck and that we don't learn from the failure and we stay in the same place. And so we have to understand that life is a symphony. Each challenge that you face and overcome is a beautiful note that creates that final masterpiece. And I guarantee you, when you do this, when you operate out of this way, when you overcome these challenges, the musical note that you play in other people's lives is inspiring. It's soothing. It's encouraging because you have the stories. You can help people. You can show people a different way of doing things. You become that musical note in other people's lives. So don't cut it short. Don't doubt yourself. Don't give in before you've reached your goals so that you can be that masterpiece in your life and other people's lives. So always remember, failure does not mean final. No matter whatever you've done, no matter what mistakes you've made, failure does not mean final. And I'd like to show you how we should operate when we have a failure. Watch this. That's how we need to be. We need to bounce back from failure. We need to have resilience. And when we fall down, don't give up, we get back up. And that's how we need to be in our lives. I don't care what mistake you make. I don't care what's gone wrong. We can always grow from it and come back better. Yeah. Get back from the setback, and so it's really important that we don't allow those flooding, intruding thoughts of guilt, shame, and fear to keep us from trying again. Because that's the only way that we will grow our muscles, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, or resilience. And so, to reach the mountain of success, you must travel through the valley of pain and failure. This is a calling for every single human being. if they want to reach success in whatever success is for you, we have to go through those valleys. So this is Andrew Stanton. He was the director for Finding Nemo and Wall-E. And this is what he stated, very interesting. He said, my strategy has always been be wrong as fast as you can. I mean, just check this out. Be wrong as fast as you can. Meaning, he had a great relationship with failure. And he would say, be wrong as fast as I can. And he said, we're going to screw up. Let's just admit that. Let's not be afraid of that. But let's do it as fast as we can so we can get to the answer. Could you imagine if we started to look at failure that way? Knowing it's a part of the process to get us to success. Knowing that we're going to make a mistake, especially if we're trying something new. Let's just get that done as quick as possible so we can move it forward. And he said, you can't get to adulthood before you go through puberty. You can't be an expert in your field until you go through mistakes, until you make these changes and transitions. He said, I won't get it right first time, but I will get it wrong very soon, really quickly. And he knew by getting it wrong soon, really quickly, he would learn the lessons. And that's why both of those films were blockbusters. Not because he just knew it and got it right and he was special, but because of the blood, sweat, and tears of working through the failure to get to his success. It's the same story. If we're looking at James Dyson, if we're looking at Michael Jordan, if we're looking at Albert Einstein, if we're looking at Thomas Edison, if you're looking at Nelson Mandela, if you're looking at Martin Luther King, you name it, it's the same formula that got them to success. And until we see failure in a different way, as a friend rather than a foe, we will remain sadly underexploited in our lives. And failure, no other thing will get you greater and closer to your success than failure and learning from those failures. And so it's really important. It's really key. Even if you think about when you take exams, if you take an exam and you pass the first time, do you know why you passed the first time? Because every bit of homework, every assignment, every essay that you was given before that you may not have got the marks that you wanted to, those failures that made you realize, right, I need to do a bit more here, I need to research that a bit more, makes you pass your exams. We have to understand the relationship with failure is ingrained with us. It's something that is there. And the more that we embrace it, is the better our lives will become, is more successful that we will become. So let's watch this video.
You will never succeed more than you fail. That's not how it works. You know why? Because failure is a wonderful teacher. It's the only way to learn. You have to fail. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in the world, he took 946 game-winning shots. He has only made 146 of those. He has missed over 700 times, but he has made 146. You know what they write about? When you make it. They write about when you make it. So guess what? When you get through failing, all you got to do is make one. Matter of fact, when you fail, be glad about it. Every time you fail, you're one step closer. So every time you fail, say, whew, got that out the way. Go to the next one. Fail again, okay, I got 2 out the way. What's going to happen is if you just keep swinging, you're going to get a hit.
Do not fear failure, but please be terrified of regret, as giving up is the birth of regret. You will receive 100 doors slam in your face. You will have 100 moments that will be filled with someone telling you no. But what I ask of you today is to not take no for an answer. Don't be afraid of no's. Be afraid of the possibility of a yes that you have prematurely destroyed because you decided to quit before the clock strikes 12. I love a good no. Please tell me no. Telling me no is like adding fuel to a fire that is now set ablaze because of your single no. I love additional reasons to work harder. Please give me a reason.
You better go inside. You still looking outside for the stuff that's already inside. You still looking for someone to save you when you already your superhero. You looking for some information from somebody when you already got what you need in your head. It's just time for you to get up and be the best version of you.
I challenge you to challenge yourself. I challenge you to stop thinking that where you are is enough. I challenge you to go beyond hurt. I challenge you to be comfortable, be uncomfortable. I challenge you.
And the problem with some of you in this room, you will never be great because every time you go through pain, every time you go through a problem, every time you go through discouragement, you give up and you quit and you do not understand that at the end of pain is your millions. At the end of pain is your reward. At the end of pain is your productivity. At the end of pain is your promise. So do me a favor, stop crying about it and use your energy to get through it.
That's what lions do. And if you are a true lion, it does not make a difference what the circumstances is. Lions don't cry. Lions don't give up. Lions don't quit. Lions hunt. We turn tragedy into triumph. That's what we do for a living.
And so I encourage all of you today to be the hero of your story and let your hero that you look up to in 10 years be you, the one who triumphed through the pain and learned in every failure. And so just to let you know, for those who are not aware, I do have my own YouTube channel and I have loads of different videos and webinars on there that are motivational tools that you can look at on various different topics to kind of support you and to help with, you know, keeping you motivated, keeping you inspired, keeping you pressing forwards. So, you know, do have a look on there, subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when I do upload new videos. And it's called Ezra, A.K.A. Voice of Reason. So this is the part where I always ask a favor of you. So what I would be really beneficial for me is if you could take a picture or a screenshot of this page and just post it on your social media channels or your LinkedIn or your Facebook or whatever, just to say, and just say a quick note about something that you found useful or what you liked about this webinar, just so that others can be aware and know where they can access this information. And, you know, just as the quote says there, you know, to reach the mountain of success, you have to travel through the valley of pain and failure. It's really important. So, just to summarize what we've gone through and looked at today. So we looked at the interior singular cortex, which lets us know how the brain processes physical and emotional pain in exactly the same way. We looked at the role of pain and how it affects us, and how pain helps us to interpret things and to know when something's gone wrong. We looked at the role of hormones, so oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and adrenaline. We looked at the sacrifice, you know, and the price tag that we have to pay for greatness, and that there is no discounts, and to recognize what it is that we are willing to give up or let go of to make that transition, to do what we can't do now, to get to where we want to go. Then we spoke about building muscles, you know, how life requires us to build our emotional, our mental, our physical resilience and spiritual muscles. And often that involves going through the pain. And often that involves experiencing failures and learning from them. We looked at exploring failure, and we explored our relationship with failure and how it can hinder us. What are the thoughts that we think when we think about failure? And how does that play out in the decisions that we make? And then we looked at what the greats had to say on this area. And we examined the various credible and successful individuals and what they had to say about it, so that we can realize and recognize there was nothing special about them. They just made right choices consistently. They choose to go through the pain of discipline rather than the pain of being stuck. And then we looked at the case studies and we expected what went on for Pixar, what went on for James Dyson. Why was it that they were able to do things in such a great way? And we see time and time again, pain and failure was involved in their success. And then finally, we looked at the black box theory. And it's important that we all have our own mechanism, our black box that we use to be able to reflect and to become more aware so that we can do differently.